the early 1700s, a strange discovery was made inside the archives of a forgotten monastery in Central Europe. For centuries, the monastery had quietly preserved thousands of ancient manuscripts, letters, and historical records. Most of these documents had already been studied many times before by scholars and historians who visited the archive. But one day, during what seemed like a routine cataloging session, something unusual appeared among the dusty shelves. Hidden behind stacks of old documents was a heavy wooden chest. Its surface was worn by time, its iron locks covered in rust, suggesting it had not been opened for decades, perhaps even centuries. The chest looked ordinary at first, but the fact that no record inside the monastery mentioned it made the discovery even more mysterious. Curious about what might be inside, several historians gathered around the object. Slowly, they lifted the heavy lid. As the chest opened, a cloud of dust escaped into the air, filling the room with the smell of old wood and ancient paper. Inside the chest, there was only one object: a single book. The book was wrapped carefully in an old piece of cloth, as if someone long ago had tried to protect it, or perhaps hide it. The historians removed the cloth slowly. Beneath it appeared a dark leather cover, aged but strangely well preserved. As candlelight reflected on the surface of the pages, some scholars claimed the manuscript almost seemed to glow faintly. The room grew silent as the historians stared at the mysterious object. None of them recognized the symbols carved into the cover. The language written around the edges did not resemble any known script commonly used in Europe at the time. It was immediately clear that this was no ordinary historical document. The chest itself had clearly been hidden deep inside the archive, placed far away from the manuscripts normally studied by scholars. Almost as if someone had wanted to make sure the book would remain forgotten. Eventually, one of the historians carefully opened the manuscript. The pages inside revealed something even stranger. The book was filled with diagrams, geometric symbols, and strange circular patterns repeated throughout the text. Some of the drawings resembled astronomical charts. Others looked more like ritualistic symbols or coded messages. The historians handled the fragile pages with extreme caution. Every line appeared deliberate, every symbol repeated with precision. But the meaning behind the text remained completely unclear. As they continued reading, they realized the manuscript was not simply recording historical events. Instead, it described ideas, concepts, and knowledge that seemed intentionally hidden behind layers of symbolism. One particular diagram appeared again and again across the pages. A circular symbol surrounded by strange annotations written in Latin and another unknown language, and no one in the room could explain what it meant. Soon, the historians began comparing the strange diagrams with old maps and historical records stored inside the monastery archives. They hoped the symbols might correspond to locations, constellations, or forgotten historical references. But the deeper they investigated, the more mysterious the manuscript became. News of the discovery quickly spread among scholars across Europe. Within weeks, more historians arrived at the monastery, hoping to study the strange book. Everyone wanted to understand what secrets the manuscript might contain, but the text did not read like a normal historical document. Instead of describing events, it hinted at hidden structures behind the course of history itself. Some passages suggested that certain discoveries throughout human history had not been lost, but deliberately hidden. According to the manuscript, knowledge itself had often been controlled. Certain ideas were allowed to spread across civilizations. Others were quietly erased. Some historians dismissed these claims as philosophical speculation written by an unknown author centuries earlier. But others felt deeply disturbed by what the text seemed to imply. If the manuscript was even partially accurate, it suggested that powerful institutions throughout history had influenced which knowledge survived and which knowledge disappeared. Debates quickly filled the archive halls of the monastery. Scholars argued over whether the manuscript represented secret historical knowledge or simply an elaborate intellectual puzzle. Researchers began analyzing every symbol, every diagram, every line of text in the book. But the strange language used throughout the manuscript made decoding it extremely difficult. And yet, certain passages continued to raise disturbing questions. The manuscript repeatedly warned about knowledge that should never be revealed openly. Knowledge that could change how people understood power, belief, and even the history of civilization itself. According to one section of the text, earlier scholars had attempted to study the manuscript centuries before, but their work had suddenly disappeared from historical records. No documents explained what those researchers had discovered, only that their studies had stopped abruptly. This detail alarmed many of the historians now studying the book. Some began to argue that the manuscript should be locked away again, not because it was supernatural, but because its ideas were potentially dangerous. Others believed the manuscript had to be decoded completely, convinced it might contain forgotten knowledge about the past. But the deeper they investigated, the more uncertainty surrounded the book. Eventually, the manuscript quietly disappeared from public study. Its location was never officially documented again. And today, historians still debate the same question. If the forbidden book truly existed, what knowledge inside it was considered so dangerous that historians themselves were afraid to read it? If the forbidden book truly existed, what knowledge inside it was considered so dangerous that historians themselves were afraid to read it? Subscribe for more hidden truths buried in the archives.